Andy Austin here, up in the attic where it is absolutely freezing. I've got a jumper on, which I don't normally wear. My next task, after doing a little bit more tidying up here, the endless task of tidying up, is to work out some way of warming it up. Right, another chapter from The Rainbow Machine, Tales from a Neurolinguist's Journal by Andrew T. Austin. Now, I keep meaning to ask people, if you could click the like button if you enjoy these videos, that would be fantastic. That really helps. And any comments as well. Always a bonus. Right, this chapter, this is almost actually qualifies as a chapter because it's 3 whole pages. This is the yo-yo dieting chapter. And in this chapter, I reference a number of observations I had around yo-yo dieters and what some of the problems around losing weight. And it was about the towards and away from values that people have in weight loss. And a lot of people's apparent towards values, so there's what I want to have rather than I don't want to have, away from values are much more potent. I don't want to have X is much more longer lasting than I do want to have X. Both different propositions. For those that are unfamiliar with this, look into towards away from values and meta programs in NLP. Now, a lot of these towards values, or what appear to be towards values, they have a time value that is retrospective. So it's a towards something in my past. So the outcome I want is I want to look like I did when I was 18. Okay, historical retrospective value. I want to go back to being the person I was before. Well, good luck, because that's gone. You have to move forwards. So the point of the chapter was to emphasize the thing about towards values needs to be future orientated, not retrospective. And just on this note, it's worth mentioning, since I wrote that book, that was a long time ago now, I did a lot of work with post-traumatic stress, and I wanted to know what did they all have in common, because some people are exposed to trauma and they don't seem to develop any complications, and other people are exposed to trauma and are massively incapacitated. So I started to look at what were the commonalities and differences between those groups. One of the values was that many people with PTSD want to go back to the person they were before the thing that happened. It's almost like the thing happened and it's ruined who I am. It's destroyed me. It's destroyed my identity. It's destroyed my welfare, my psychological health, emotional health. So I want to go back to how I was before. Good luck with that one, because that's not going to happen. And this was something I saw repeatedly in PTSD patients. And it's a very, very difficult one for people to come to terms with. They're always going to be the person that the thing that happened to. They're always going to be the person that was in that incident, whatever the incident was of that description. And no matter how much they try and build an identity or outcomes that are basically, they exclude the thing that happened, it's not possible. And there's an attempt to basically time travel, go back to who they were before, which of course also is the person to whom the thing happens. So even if it were achievable, I mean, God, I have encountered stories, not firsthand, I've encountered stories of hypnotherapists who do exactly that. Timeline therapy, anybody? Who actually will try and put people back to before the thing that happened. Now, of course, there's 2 things here. One is they're now the person the thing is going to happen to, but now the thing happening is now a future-based event, but if they have been regressed to a point of time before the thing that happened. Very, very sloppy work. And in timeline therapy, of which I've got to say, I'm not a fan. Not a fan at all. Did train in it. Like the idea, if only I could get it to work a bit better than it appeared to do so. And that also raises concerns for me around what are people doing in terms of the towards and away from values, and also future retrospectively orientated values. Now, that wasn't really where I was going with this. Where was I going? Towards and away from values, I've completely forgotten. Right, we'll do a jump cut. Right, now having had some slurp of tea, I now remember what it was I was going to talk about. Now, this is some other things I recognized around weight loss and stuff I saw happening in the weight loss workshops. So for those who've read the book, you'll be familiar with one of the things I used to do when I was running more the experimental weight loss groups. They were normally 1 or 2 day events where I would take people through the psychological dynamics of weight gain, weight loss, eating, and all this stuff, all the problems that come up. I would set them in places that didn't have any immediately accessible shops or somewhere where people could buy food. And I would tell everybody, there's no refreshments available. There's nothing on site. There's nothing within walking distance. So please be sure to bring your lunch with you. Bring your lunch with you. Bring any refreshments with you. There is nothing on site. It won't matter how many times I tell them. What was amazing to me, and this was deliberate, what was amazing to me was just how many people turned up, not having had breakfast and not bringing any lunch with them or anything else. Because they wait until they're hungry to react to that situation, and then they'll deal with it when it happens. There's very little forward planning and future planning stuff with it. So that was one of the key features. Now, of course, once I recognised, the next thing I would do is I would provide refreshments, but they were all cream cakes. Just lots of cake. Lots and lots of cake. That would be the only thing available. And what was amazing to me was how many people would say, but that's not fair. You shouldn't be doing this. This is cruel. Okay, well, you don't have to eat them. You don't have to eat them. But clearly, there is something happening inside you that suggests that in order for you to avoid eating these things and the temptation of these things, then extraneous things have to happen. You can impose rule structures and demands upon other people so they change their behavior so you aren't subjected to temptation, that kind of thing. So what I was able then to do is work with the material that would come up. How would people object? What were the objections they would raise? And what is the structuring of how they would do that? So I could then build that into the work that I was doing with the group. And I had one person did actually walk out. They were not impressed at all. It's like, you're just taking their piss. It's like, well, I am to a degree, but with a point, because in order to access what's really happening with people, rather than the story they've learned to tell, to find out what's actually happening, why you have the difficulty that you're having, let's put you into the situation where the difficulty arises, and then work with what happens as it happens. There's too much therapy that is happening in the clinical setting, the safe clinical setting of the therapist office, and the therapist never gets to see what's really happening in that person's life. And it's almost like there's two worlds, and those worlds are never integrate. There's the therapeutic world and of all the change work, and then there's the real life horrors that person experiences, and yet they're kept completely separate. How about we actually integrate those two things? And I would like to see many more therapists and psychiatrists and psychologists come out of their office, come out of the big comfy chair and the leather covered desk that they all often have, you know, the type. Get out of the office and actually go into the homes and go into the environments of some of these clients that they have, some of these patients, and actually see firsthand what's going on. Because I think you get a very different approach in terms of what you can do. But anyway, this wasn't where I was planning on going with this one. This was the other simple observation from these workshops. I would set people a ridiculous task to do in groups. So I get them to divide into whatever group sizes they like, and I would give them a very simple instruction. I want you to think about your desired outcome in terms of weight loss, body size, all that kind of, however you visualize it. And I want you to notice where relative to you the outcome is. So I presuppose there was a location of it. And what I want you to do is in your groups, I want you to point to where the outcome is, and then I want you to walk to it. Okay, into groups, off you go. Now, that's such a weird exercise to tell people to do. People initially were like, what? What have we got to do? What is this? And I go, okay, just work it out with your groups, find where your outcome is, and walk to it. Go on, off you go, and people would be utterly baffled as to what on earth this is. So it will take a little while for people to actually start to actually do anything. All part of my little plan. Here is what I would watch people do. So they'd stand around in little groups. They would have these conversations like, what the hell are we supposed to do? Think of a goal in a walk to it, all right. And then people go, if I think about my outcome, it's over there somewhere. And they would then describe how far away it was. It might be a few steps for some people. Other people, it was halfway across the hall. And they'd go and walk across to it. And they would then stand on it, and they'd look back to the group and go, now what do I do? And what they would all do is then walk back to the group and go back to the group and stand in exactly the same place where they were stood at the beginning. The precision by which people did this is remarkable. I'm going to do this again one day and with a group who haven't seen this video and film it so you can actually see. If I mark out like a grid on the floor, we know exactly where that person comes back to. They don't come back to the approximate place they're standing, although some people do. most people come back to the exact place they were stood. So they walk to their goal, they arrive at their goal, and then go back to where they were to begin with. And everybody did that. I never saw anybody, until word started getting around, they're getting wise to it. There's always one smart ass who knows what to do. No one would go to their goal and stay there. They would go to their goal and then go back to where they were to begin with. No one went to the goal and then called the group over to them. It was like, okay, I've done the goal now I can go back to what I was doing before. And this, for me, was a perfect simile, metaphor, I don't know which one it is, perfect analogy for how people think about weight loss. People are very good at achieving an ideal weight, and they can lose weight and go to that ideal weight. But as soon as they're there, what have they done now? They go back to the same behaviors they did before. It's like the alcoholics and the cocaine users who celebrate a year sober by going and get a fix or whatever their drug is. Weight loss people seem to do the same. As soon as they've achieved their goal, the action of losing weight, the action of becoming healthier and fitter, is almost like, okay, we're done now, we can stop doing that behavior. Go back to what we did before. Celebrate with a bag of chips and a cake. So that was the additional thing I wanted to add for that particular chapter, because it's something that you can start to think of in your own lives. When you try and make a change in your life, when you try and improve something, when you're studying something, when you're trying to make anything happen that's improving your life, what happens when you get it? How many people, and you do use the comment section here, how many people you've accomplished something, you've surfed the perfect wave, you've climbed the mountain, you've done whatever your version of that is, you've achieved it, and now you feel just a little bit depressed because you don't know what to do now? It was all about the fun was more in the achieving the thing itself than the accomplishment that comes at the combination of that. Now, for a lot of people, they go to the next mountain. They go to the next beach where there's even bigger waves. There's always something bigger and better they can do. But for an awful lot of people, it doesn't work that way. They make the accomplishment, and then they don't know what to do, so they go back to doing everything they did before, which wasn't achieving anything. And that is such a common thing for people who then later in life, they live on their past glories. And if you're someone who does that, you revive past glories from years before in order to feel good in the current moment. And so it's retrospective that you may want to start to pay attention to your timeline orientation. So what are you moving towards? Future orientated. What are you moving towards? Retrospectively orientated. It's not really towards, it's moving back, but it's a towards value. What are you moving away from the past? So what are your away from values that are historical, but also what are your away from values that are future based? An awful lot of people, especially in the personal development community, in careers and stuff like that, when people are trying to better themselves, they're trying to get things, they have that fear of success, they have that fear of actually accomplishing the very thing, they worry about the consequence. Often it's because they might have to do some public speaking in some description. I'm sure that's the number one commonality. So they will actually move away from future goals rather than moving towards them. And they move away from future goals but try and move towards past goals. Just look at the school reunion, look at the Facebook phenomena, people connecting with all the people that they've not seen for 20 years because somehow to reconnect with those people now will make life better. How about connecting more in a future orientated manner, maybe with those same people? That's not the bad thing, but it's the manner in which people are retrospectively orientated in a towards goal. So you can be forwards or retrospective, time-wise, and towards and away from for both of those directions. Do please use the comment section below, click the like button, you'd be amazing. And if you fancy, leave a review over on Amazon, that would be even better as well. You could do all of those things. I'll see you in the next video.